And there he is, President Joseph R. Biden, the 46th President of the United States, making his way down the steps to be greeted from behind that presidential limo there with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. A salute.
A warm welcome from the Lord Lieutenant for County Antrim, the King's representative in that part of Northern Ireland, and all smiles from the Prime Minister. Very keen to welcome the Prime Minister. And
Senator Joe Kennedy there, I think, is the new Northern Ireland representative from the US government who is here on this visit, playing a key role. He's going to be staying on, I understand, once President Biden does go back, to try and ensure that the US government role in trying to get consensus back and get power sharing back at Stormont keeps having that sort of impetus.
Yes, and the White House has, over the years, had many envoys to Northern Ireland, including Senator George Mitchell himself, who spent 4 years here brokering the historic compromise between the political parties. But isn't it interesting to see Joe Kennedy appointed as an envoy to Northern Ireland these days? In many ways, we've come full circle.
It's funny how history does that, right?
Because, because it was President John F. Kennedy you could describe as the most Irish American of all presidents. The Kennedys emigrated from Wexford in the west, on the east coast of Ireland, and made it from Wexford to the White House in the space of one generation.
It's not a bad journey. Well, as you said, David, all smiles now as the president is finally here. As we said, the fourth president to come to this part of the United Kingdom. A quick chat there with Rishi Sunak, and as you say, David, he's got a packed schedule ahead of him. So once he's done the meet and greet and said the right things and all the pleasantries, will be whisked off into the city where I guess the work will begin on preparing for that speech. And you say it's going to be a speech to students, to some 400 people. I'm told it's going to be about 25 minutes long. I mean, what do you expect the tone of it to be?
I think it's interesting that he's coming to talk to the next generation in Northern Ireland. That perhaps suggests that he isn't so confident that the political leaders of today are going to manage to restore the power-sharing government and to see the hopes of the Good Friday Agreement become a reality. And therefore he is going to come here and send that message to a wider audience that it's time to embrace the hopes of Northern Ireland, in the hopes that were established way back on the 10th of April 1998, on that day when Senator George Mitchell uttered those famous 19 words. I'm pleased to announce that the two governments and the political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement. It was really a very momentous day in Northern Ireland, coming just 4 years after the terrorist organisations had declared ceasefires. And it was really a masterstroke in terms of creative ambiguity, because it allowed both unionists and nationalists to claim that they had achieved something. Unionists achieved the principle of consent, that Northern Ireland will remain part of the United Kingdom until a majority here vote otherwise. Of course, we saw prisoners released early from prison as part of the Good Friday Agreement, and all of the terrorist organisations pledged to destroy their weapons. So you really couldn't exaggerate the significance of that day.
Yeah, it was incredible in being able to give people on both sides exactly what they wanted. As we continue to look at these pictures, it does strike me that this is a family affair. We can see Dr. Jill Biden there in the foreground, and off to the right of screen there, that looks to me like Hunter Biden, the president's son there. I know that the Bidens did travel to Ireland back in 2017 to check out their ancestry and the genealogy, and just to confirm whereabouts in the Republic they are from. And of course, as we said, later on this week, they're going to be making a similar journey to County Louth and County Mayo.
There's no doubt whatsoever that the President is very proud of his Irish ancestry, having visited as Vice President both those ancestral counties of Louth and Mayo. And you will remember during his election campaign just how often he quoted the poetry of Seamus Heaney. So I think the President really has a sense of connection with Irish culture, with Irish heritage. And how many times do we hear him saying, "I'm Irish"? Yeah. At one stage we had that significant moment where someone stepped forward to doorstep him, as we say in the media, and they said, "I'm from the BBC," and he said, "I'm Irish." So he didn't want to talk to the British Broadcasting Corporation. That's how Irish Joe Biden considers himself.
Said with a smile. I don't know if you'd be able to say that sort of thing now. But, well, look, we can see that the delegations are getting into the limo, into the Beast. They're going to be driving away from Belfast International, having done the handshakes, said their hellos. You know, they've just come across the Atlantic. They must be tired, and there is plenty of work ahead for this US delegation here in Ireland, not least in Northern Ireland, but also once they get to the Republic, to try and continue to build on that 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. And one thought I did want to get from you, David, is this sense of President Biden kind of stepping on what has gone before. Of course, such a huge moment 25 years ago when that agreement was made. Power sharing was broken down. How much do you think Biden feels like it is incumbent on him as a Democrat and as an Irishman to try and help this thing along a little bit?
Well, America has always been incredibly, staunchly defensive of the Good Friday Agreement, not least because they consider it perhaps President Bill Clinton's finest moment in terms of foreign policy achievement. And of course, this is another Democratic president in office now, considering a run for a second term. So he wants to demonstrate that same level of commitment, not just in Ireland, but in the Northern Ireland peace process. And at every time we've seen a president here, it seems to be at a significant moment. Bill Clinton came because the terrorist ceasefires had been declared. He visited on a number of occasions, not least soon after the bombing of Omagh in 1998, the largest single atrocity. So now we have another president setting foot on Northern Irish soil at a time when there is a political difficulty, which has been caused, of course, by the consequences of Brexit.
Yeah, and what do you think the reaction is going to be from the leaders of those parties when he meets them tomorrow? Very set on either side of this and unwilling to compromise. I mean, voting against the agreement the DUP did in the Commons just recently. A president comes across the Atlantic to talk to them. What kind of reception do you think he's going to get? Well,
you heard in my report earlier this hour, the Sinn Féin Deputy Leader Michelle O'Neill, who's the first nationalist to have been elected to the office of First Minister Designate, says this is always significant because of what she describes as America's skin in the game, because America has invested so much in Northern Ireland. And she says it's really important for him to come here to express this level of support politically and economically. And there we have the Prime Minister also just about to depart Belfast International Airport and make his way to his own hotel overnight, where he'll be doing some preparation for that important meeting with the US President in the morning.
The Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris as well, who has also got work to do. I mean, it just sort of reinforces, doesn't it? You know, power sharing has been broken down for a couple of years now. It doesn't seem like it's getting closer to coming back. So these top-level politicians will really want to see if they can drive it forward a bit. And I guess there was a lot of that in 97 with the Good Friday Agreement. You had a new government come in. You had a lot of exhaustion from all those years of violence. That can happen in politics, can't it? You can suddenly get like a little bit of impetus, a little bit of oomph that gives something a push.
Molly, I'm impressed. Your eyesight's better than mine, being able to pick out Chris Heaton-Harris in the dark at Belfast International Airport this evening. But he is a man, obviously, with a lot of work to do because of the difficulties at Stormont. As Northern Ireland Secretary, he has effectively had to step in to govern this place with a small team around him for a period of time. Not that that is a return to the formalities of direct rule from Westminster we would have seen before there was a devolved government in Northern Ireland. But there is a problem right now. We know the problem exists because the DUP are boycotting the power-sharing government over Brexit, and that means Northern Ireland does not have a functioning government right now. And that's something we've seen many times, the collapse of the Northern Ireland Assembly, the collapse of the power-sharing executive over the last 25 years. The reason for that, and I suppose to some extent it is the flaw in the Good Friday Agreement. Mandatory coalition requires the largest unionist party and the largest nationalist party to agree if there is to be a power-sharing government. So the moment there's a dispute between them over anything, that government collapses. But that political mechanism, which effectively gives a veto to the largest unionist party and the largest nationalist party, squeezes out the middle ground. Their votes don't seem to be just as valuable. And that's why many people are calling for a restructuring of the system, because the political mechanism that is the Good Friday Agreement to underscore a fragile peace here or underpin a fragile peace here is also the very thing that often causes the political paralysis.
Very well. David, if you continue to look at these pictures from Belfast International Airport, you can see tarmac clear, the beast is rolling, President Joe Biden on his way. The short drive, 30-40 minutes from the outskirts of the city into the city centre, where he's going to overnight before he begins his packed schedule to mark the anniversary of the 25th signing of the Good Friday Agreement, and also spend time in the Republic of Ireland, in his ancestral homeland in both County Louth and County Mayo. And we'll be fitting in a good couple of keynote speeches. There he is, President Biden, making his way into Belfast city centre.